Imagine lying down at night, closing your eyes, and wishing you could wake up speaking perfect English by morning. It sounds magical, doesn't it? The idea of learning a language in your sleep has fascinated so many people. And while sleep itself doesn't make you fluent, there is a powerful truth hidden inside this dream. Your brain never stops working, even when you're resting. What you feed it during the day, what you expose it to before you sleep, and what you choose to repeat again and again can actually transform your ability to learn. Think about it. How many times have you woken up with a song stuck in your head, one you didn't even try to memorize? That happens because your mind absorbs what you give it. Now imagine replacing that song with English words, phrases, and expressions. The more you surround yourself with English before you sleep, the more your brain continues to process it in the background. This isn't magic. It's persistence meeting the natural power of your mind. But here's the real truth. There is no shortcut to fluency. You won't just put on headphones, fall asleep, and suddenly become fluent overnight. Yet if you use sleep as an ally, not an excuse, you can multiply your learning. Listen to English stories before bed. Play English podcasts softly in the background. Review a few words, write down your thoughts in English, or even repeat affirmations like, "I am improving every day." These small actions plant seeds in your subconscious, and with time, those seeds grow into confidence and fluency. Don't chase the fantasy of waking up fluent tomorrow. Instead, chase the reality of waking up a little stronger, a little better than yesterday. That's how true progress is built, step by step, night after night. Every single day you choose to expose yourself to English, even in small ways, you're training your mind to accept it, to embrace it, and to eventually make it feel natural. So tonight, when you lie down to rest, remind yourself, your journey doesn't pause while you sleep. Your mind is still with you, still learning, still shaping the person you want to become. Use that gift, believe in that process, and trust that one day you will wake up, not suddenly fluent, but undeniably transformed by the effort you've put in. That's the real truth about learning English in your sleep. Your brain is not a machine that switches off the moment you close your eyes. Even when your body is at rest, your mind is alive, active, and working silently in the background. Think about the times you've gone to bed worrying about something, only to wake up the next morning with a fresh perspective or even a solution. That's not an accident. That is your brain continuing to process information, to sort through thoughts, and to strengthen the things it believes are important. And this is exactly why the concept of learning, especially learning a language like English, becomes deeply connected to what you feed your mind before sleep. When you sleep, your brain goes through different stages, from light sleep to deep rest, and finally into REM, the stage where most of your dreaming takes place. During these cycles, your brain doesn't just shut down. Instead, it organizes and consolidates memories, reinforcing the things you've experienced, studied, or even casually heard throughout the day. Imagine it as a librarian working late at night, putting every book, every word, every piece of knowledge in the right place so you can find it more easily tomorrow. This is why the more you surround yourself with English during your waking hours, the more your brain has to work with when you finally drift off. Have you ever noticed how a song you listen to before bed plays in your head when you wake up? Sometimes it even sneaks into your dreams. That happens because repetition creates pathways in the mind and sleep strengthens them. Now imagine using that natural power for something greater than just music. Imagine letting English words, phrases, and expressions repeat themselves softly in your subconscious while you sleep. Even if you don't suddenly wake up speaking fluently, those patterns begin to sink deeper, making it easier for you to recall and use them in your daily conversations. The human brain is extraordinary because it treats sleep as a time of restoration and learning. Every time you expose yourself to English before bed, whether it's by reading a short story, listening to a podcast, or reviewing words you've written, the brain doesn't just store them like a file in a computer. It strengthens the connections between neurons, creating stronger pathways that make remembering and using English more natural the next day. It's like practicing without even realizing it, like your brain is doing the heavy lifting while your body rests. Think about children for a moment. They pick up languages so quickly, not only because they are curious and fearless, but because their brains are constantly absorbing and processing everything around them, even during sleep. As adults, we sometimes believe that we lose this ability, but the truth is, our brains remain just as capable of processing and reinforcing new knowledge. We simply need to use the right approach. The things we choose to focus on, especially before sleep, determine what our brain continues to work on through the night. If a child can wake up one day suddenly speaking a word they never consciously practiced, imagine what could happen if you consistently feed your brain with English before bedtime. This is where the real magic lies. Your mind cannot create fluency out of thin air, but it can magnify what you've already started. If you spent the day learning a few new English phrases, then listen to them again before falling asleep, your brain takes those phrases and strengthens them in your memory. It's like watering seeds you've planted during the day, giving them the chance to grow while you sleep. By the time you wake up, those seeds are a little stronger, a little more alive, and a little easier to use when you need them. And here's something powerful to remember. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue, it doesn't resist, it simply absorbs. When you play English softly before you sleep, your subconscious doesn't say, "I can't understand this," or "this is too difficult." It just listens. It just takes it in. Slowly, word by word, phrase by phrase, it begins to feel more familiar. And familiarity is the first step toward confidence. What once felt foreign and intimidating starts to sound natural, like a part of your daily life. You see, the brain is always listening, always paying attention, even when you are not fully aware of it. That's why people who live in English-speaking countries often improve faster, not only because they practice more actively during the day, but because English surrounds them in the background, constantly entering their subconscious. But you don't have to move across the world to experience that. You can create that same environment for yourself, even in your own bedroom, simply by choosing what to expose your brain to before sleep. Your brain is not your enemy in this journey. It is your most powerful ally. It doesn't stop when you rest. It doesn't slow down. It keeps working tirelessly for you. The only question is, what are you giving it to work with? Are you feeding it distractions, negativity, and fear? Or are you feeding it words, knowledge, and the sounds of the language you want to master? The choice is yours, and the effect of that choice can be life-changing. Many people dream of putting on headphones, falling asleep, and waking up the next morning speaking perfect English. It's an attractive idea, and that's why it spreads so quickly across the internet, because it promises a shortcut. But the truth is, there are no shortcuts to fluency. Sleep alone will not make you fluent. You cannot expect to go to bed one night, listening to a few recordings, and wake up the next day speaking like a native. Language doesn't work that way because fluency is not about memorizing sounds. It's about practice, repetition, emotion, and real-life use. And those things cannot be skipped. But here's the beauty of it. Just because sleep won't magically hand you fluency doesn't mean it's not powerful. Sleep is a tool, a silent partner that supports what you do when you're awake. If you spend your days ignoring English, not listening, not practicing, and then expect sleep to perform a miracle, nothing will happen. But if you've put in effort during the day, if you've spoken a little, listened to something new, written down a few words, then sleep becomes the bridge that helps those efforts stick. Think of it as a helper that makes your work last longer, a reinforcement that protects what you've learned from being forgotten. It's like building a house. During the day, you lay down bricks. Each word, each phrase, each attempt at speaking is another brick. On its own, the brick is just sitting there, fragile and loose. But at night, while you sleep, your brain comes in with cement, locking those bricks into place, making the wall stronger and more permanent. Without the bricks, there is nothing to cement. Without the cement, the bricks fall apart. Both are necessary, and together they build something that lasts. This is why people often underestimate the combination of effort and rest. They either work endlessly without proper sleep, or they rest without putting in the effort. True progress requires both. If you truly want to use sleep as part of your journey, you must respect the daytime process. Read English aloud, even if you stumble. Listen to conversations, even if you don't catch every word. Write simple sentences, make mistakes, and learn from them. All of this gives your brain material to process, material to reinforce when you finally close your eyes at night. There's a reason athletes sleep deeply before competitions. Their bodies repair, their muscles grow stronger, and their minds sharpen the movements they practiced during training. Language learners are no different. If you train your tongue, your ears, and your mind with English during the day, then sleep becomes the recovery phase where everything you practiced is strengthened. That's why after consistent effort, you often wake up with a clear understanding or suddenly find that a phrase feels easier to say. It's not magic, it's science, and it's the reward of effort. But many people chase the illusion of instant results, and that illusion only leads to disappointment. You must remind yourself that language is not about speed, it's about depth. You don't just want to know words, you want to feel them, to be able to use them without fear, and that kind of confidence cannot be downloaded overnight. It's built through patience. The nights you spend listening, the mornings you spend practicing, the mistakes you make and correct, all of it shapes your fluency. Sleep supports this process, but it cannot replace it. Imagine trying to learn to ride a bicycle by watching videos in your sleep. No matter how much you watched, you'd still need to get on the bike, wobble, fall, and try again before balance became natural. The same is true for English. Listening in your sleep may help your brain get comfortable with the sounds, but you still need to open your mouth during the day, make mistakes, and practice speaking to truly achieve fluency. The difference is that sleep makes the learning easier to remember, and it helps your progress feel more natural over time. And here's something powerful. Consistency transforms sleep into a tool for mastery. If you expose yourself to English only once in a while, your brain doesn't have enough repetition to hold on to. But if you create a routine, if you listen every night, review every day, and slowly build a habit, your brain will reward you. Night after night, it will take what you've practiced and make it a little stronger, a little clearer, a little easier to recall. This is why successful learners don't chase miracles. They build routines that turn small efforts into lasting skills. Sleep won't make you fluent instantly, but it will amplify everything you do. It's the silent partner that multiplies your practice, the background worker that strengthens your memory, the invisible teacher that repeats the lesson long after the classroom is closed. It will not give you shortcuts, but it will make the long road smoother, easier, and more rewarding if you're willing to walk that road during the day. What you do before you close your eyes at night matters more than you think. The final moments of your day leave a powerful imprint on your mind, and your brain carries those impressions into sleep. This is why people often say not to go to bed angry, because the emotions you carry into sleep tend to stay with you, shaping your dreams and even the way you feel when you wake up. The same principle applies to learning. If you feed your brain English before bedtime, you're giving it the material it needs to keep working in the background, reinforcing those sounds, phrases, and patterns long after you've fallen asleep. Imagine ending your day by scrolling aimlessly through social media, filling your mind with random videos, arguments, or negative content. That energy doesn't just disappear, it lingers in your subconscious. Now imagine instead that your last act before sleep is listening to a calming English story, reading a few pages of an English book, or playing a podcast softly in the background. Instead of clutter and noise, your mind is filled with rhythm, vocabulary, and the gentle patterns of the language you want to master. That difference shapes the way your brain spends the night, and it directly affects the kind of progress you'll see over time. Exposure before sleep doesn't mean you have to study intensely or memorize lists of vocabulary right before bed. In fact, that would probably only stress you. What it really means is creating a simple ritual, a gentle way of reminding your brain what matters to you. For example, you could listen to an English audiobook for 10 minutes, or replay a lesson you studied earlier in the day. You could even record your own voice, repeating some phrases you want to remember, and then let those play as you drift off. The goal is not to overload your mind, but to immerse it, to make English the last thing it hears, sees, or feels before rest begins. Think about the power of repetition. The more you hear certain words and structures, the more natural they feel. If your brain hears the same phrase often enough, it begins to accept it without resistance. By exposing yourself to English before bed, you're giving your brain the chance to hear these words over and over, not just in waking life, but during the hours when it's most focused on memory consolidation. That repetition builds familiarity, and familiarity eventually builds fluency. It's like leaving a gentle background soundtrack playing for your subconscious. You may not notice it while you sleep, but your mind does. The rhythm of English, the melody of sentences, the intonation of speakers, all of it slowly becomes a part of you. And the next time you try to use the language, you'll notice something surprising. Words will flow more naturally, sentences will feel smoother, and your ear will recognize sounds more easily. This is the invisible work of exposure before sleep. But here's something important. Exposure is not just about sound. It can also be about emotion. If you read an inspiring English story before bed, or listen to a motivational talk, the emotions tied to those words become stronger. Emotion is one of the most powerful tools for memory. When you feel connected to the language, when it stirs something in your heart, your brain gives it more importance. That's why a single phrase from a movie or a speech can stick in your mind for years, while random vocabulary lists disappear in a few days. By choosing meaningful, inspiring English content before sleep, you're not only learning, you're attaching emotion to the language, which makes it unforgettable. Consistency is what transforms this into a habit. Doing it once may feel good, but doing it every night creates a pattern your brain begins to expect. Over time, you'll notice that the simple act of listening to English before bed becomes natural, almost automatic, and with every passing night, the language seeps deeper into your subconscious. You won't see the results immediately, but slowly, piece by piece, English will begin to feel like a familiar friend instead of a foreign struggle. Exposure before sleep is like planting seeds in fertile soil. You may not see them sprout right away, but underneath the surface, growth is happening. The next morning, you may not notice a dramatic difference, but after weeks and months of consistent exposure, you'll look back and realize how far you've come. Words that once felt strange will suddenly sound natural. Sentences that once felt impossible will feel easier, and conversations will begin to flow with less fear. All because you chose to give your brain the right material at the right time. The truth is, you don't have to travel to an English-speaking country to surround yourself with the language. You can create your own environment right where you are, starting with those quiet moments before sleep. By replacing distractions with meaningful exposure, you're telling your brain, "This is important, this matters to me," and the brain listens. It always listens. Consistency is where the real transformation happens. You can listen to English one night and feel motivated, but if you stop the next night and the night after that, your brain doesn't get the steady flow it needs. Learning a language is not about grand gestures. It's about the small, repeated actions that add up over time. One drop of water may seem insignificant, but when it keeps falling on the same spot day after day, it shapes stone. Your brain works in exactly the same way. Every time you expose yourself to English, every time you repeat a word, every time you listen before sleep, you are leaving an imprint, carving a path in your subconscious that grows deeper and stronger with time. People often ask, how long will it take me to become fluent? But the better question is, how consistently am I willing to show up? Because fluency is not measured in days or weeks, it's measured in habits. If you make English a part of your daily routine, even in small amounts, you will move forward. If you treat it as something you only do when you feel inspired or have extra time, you will always find yourself starting over. The difference between those who succeed and those who give up is rarely intelligence. It is consistency. Think of learning English as planting a garden. The first time you plant seeds, the soil looks empty. Days pass and nothing seems to happen. Many people give up at this stage, thinking their efforts are useless. But those who continue watering, who continue caring, eventually see small green sprouts pushing through the ground. With more time and care, those sprouts grow into strong plants. Language works exactly like this. The seeds are your daily actions, listening to a short podcast, writing a few sentences, reviewing vocabulary before bed. You may not see results immediately, but beneath the surface, your brain is working, roots are growing, and eventually, fluency begins to bloom. Consistency does not require perfection. You don't have to study for hours every day, and you don't have to understand everything you hear. What matters is that you show up daily. Even 5 or 10 minutes of focused English exposure before sleep can be more powerful than hours of scattered, irregular study, because what matters most is not how much you do in one day, but how often you do it. A short step taken every single day will take you farther than a giant leap taken only once in a while. There will be days when motivation is low, when you feel tired, when progress feels invisible. That's when consistency matters most. It's easy to practice when you're excited. The real growth happens when you continue even without excitement. Those small daily choices are like promises you keep to yourself, and each time you keep that promise, your confidence grows. You begin to believe in your ability, not because of sudden results, but because you see yourself showing up again and again. And here's the secret: consistency turns effort into identity. At first, you may tell yourself, I am trying to learn English. But when you practice every day, even in small ways, it becomes natural to say, I am someone who lives with English daily. That shift in identity is powerful. You no longer see English as a distant goal, but as part of who you are. And when something becomes part of your identity, giving up is no longer an option. It feels as natural as brushing your teeth, as necessary as eating, as automatic as breathing. Your subconscious mind thrives on repetition. It doesn't ask whether something is right or wrong, useful or useless. It simply absorbs what you give it again and again. If you repeat negative thoughts, your subconscious accepts them. If you repeat English words, phrases, and affirmations, your subconscious accepts those too. Consistency is the bridge that transforms effort into subconscious belief. Over time, English becomes less of a struggle and more of a reflex, because your brain has heard it, seen it, and practiced it so often that it no longer feels foreign. Even when progress feels slow, consistency ensures that you never truly stand still. Think of it like walking up a mountain. Some days the path is steep and you feel every step. Other days it feels easier, almost like you're gliding. But whether the climb feels hard or easy, as long as you keep moving, you are getting closer to the top. That's what daily action does. It keeps you moving, even on the days when motivation disappears. So every night before you sleep, ask yourself, did I give my brain at least a little English to work with today? If the answer is yes, then you are already winning. Don't underestimate the power of these small choices. Over weeks, months, and years, they build a foundation so strong that fluency stops being a dream and starts becoming your reality. One of the greatest challenges in learning English or in learning anything meaningful is patience. We live in a world that celebrates instant results, quick fixes, and overnight success stories. It's tempting to believe that fluency can arrive in the same way, sudden, effortless, and fast. But real progress is rarely like that. Real progress is gradual, often invisible in the moment, and only clear when you look back and see how far you've come. You will not wake up tomorrow speaking perfect English, but if you keep moving forward, you will wake up tomorrow just a little stronger than today, and that small difference, repeated again and again, creates transformation. Think of it like growing taller as a child. You never noticed the exact day you grew an inch, but one day you realized your clothes didn't fit anymore. Growth was happening all along, quietly, without you being able to measure it each day. Learning English works the same way. You may not feel the change every single night, but little by little, your vocabulary expands, your listening sharpens, your tongue becomes more comfortable with the sounds. One day, without even realizing it, you'll find yourself using a phrase naturally that once felt impossible. That is the beauty of gradual progress. It sneaks up on you, but only if you've stayed consistent long enough for it to happen. This is why it's dangerous to compare yourself with others. You may see someone speaking fluently and think, they learn so quickly, why can't I? But what you don't see are the countless small steps they took every single day, the invisible hours they spent practicing when no one was watching. Fluency doesn't happen in one night, it's built in thousands of nights. It's not a sudden leap, it's a steady climb. And your climb is unique to you. Every step you take brings you closer, even if it feels slow. The mistake many learners make is expecting too much, too soon. They practice for a week, don't see dramatic results, and then give up. But progress in language learning is like progress in fitness. You can't go to the gym for 3 days and expect a perfect body. You go because each workout builds strength, each repetition builds endurance, and over time you notice that you can lift more, run farther, move faster. The results appear slowly, then suddenly. It's the same with English. Each conversation, each podcast, each page you read builds your language muscles until one day you realize you can handle situations that once terrified you. And here's the most encouraging part. You don't need to be fluent tomorrow to feel proud of yourself. What matters is that you are better than yesterday. If yesterday you only understood one word from a podcast and today you understood three, that is progress. If yesterday you hesitated to say, "How are you?" and today you asked a whole question, that is progress. These small wins are not small at all. They are proof that you are moving forward, and when you collect enough of them, they create unstoppable momentum. Progress also lives in the mistakes. Every error you make is not a setback, but a step forward. Mistakes are signs that you are trying, that you are pushing beyond what feels comfortable. If you never make mistakes, it means you are not challenging yourself. And when you keep going, you'll notice that the mistakes you made last month are no longer mistakes today. They've become lessons absorbed into your subconscious. That is the gradual process of learning. What once embarrassed you becomes natural. What once confused you becomes clear. This gradual progress is also why sleep and consistency matter so much. Each day, you give your brain something new. Each night, your brain processes it, makes it stronger, and stores it. You wake up not transformed, but slightly improved. And if you honor this process day after day, night after night, those small improvements stack up until they become something extraordinary. Progress doesn't shout, it whispers. And if you're patient enough to listen, you'll hear it in the way your English flows more smoothly, in the way your fear decreases, in the way your confidence grows. So instead of chasing the fantasy of waking up fluent tomorrow, embrace the reality of waking up better than yesterday. That's the truth no one wants to hear, but it's also the truth that sets you free, because if fluency came instantly, it would not feel as rewarding. The struggle, the patience, the gradual climb, that is what makes the destination meaningful. And every day you commit to that climb, you are already living the progress you once only dreamed about. Sleep is not your escape from learning, it is your partner in learning. Too many people hear about the idea of learning in your sleep and use it as an excuse to avoid effort. They say to themselves, "I'll just listen to recordings at night and wake up fluent." But when the morning comes and fluency is still out of reach, disappointment sets in, and they blame the method instead of their own lack of action. The truth is, sleep was never meant to replace your effort. It was meant to strengthen it. It was never meant to carry you on its own. It was meant to walk beside you, amplifying the work you've already done. Think of sleep as a mirror. It reflects whatever you gave your brain during the day. If you spent your waking hours distracted, avoiding practice, and filling your mind with noise, then sleep has nothing useful to work with. But if you practiced even a little, listening, speaking, reading, writing, then sleep takes that effort and engraves it deeper into your subconscious. The reflection you get is only as clear as the input you provide. This is why you must treat sleep as an ally, not as a substitute. Imagine a student preparing for an exam. If they only sleep with the textbook next to their pillow, nothing happens. But if they study during the day, practice questions, review their notes, and then sleep, their brain organizes all that information and prepares them to recall it the next morning. The same principle applies to English. You cannot expect fluency to appear without practice, but when you combine practice with rest, your learning becomes stronger, sharper, and more lasting. This is the balance that most learners ignore. Some overwork themselves, staying up late, studying until exhaustion, thinking they are forcing fluency to arrive faster. But without sleep, the brain cannot consolidate memories. The effort becomes less effective because the brain has no time to store what was learned. Others swing to the opposite extreme, doing little or nothing during the day and expecting sleep to magically do the job. Both approaches fail because they forget the truth. Fluency is built through partnership, your conscious effort during the day and your brain's subconscious effort at night. Using sleep as an ally means being intentional about what you give your mind. It means choosing English exposure over distractions, even in small ways. It could be listening to a podcast on your way to bed, practicing a few phrases out loud before turning off the lights, or playing an audiobook softly as you fall asleep. These actions tell your brain, "This matters, work on this for me while I rest," and your brain, faithful as always, listens. but it will only amplify what you have truly begun to practice when awake. There is also something deeply powerful about trust in this process. When you know that your effort will not be wasted, that your brain will continue the work for you during sleep, you stop feeling the pressure of needing instant results. You can relax, knowing that each day's effort carries over into the night, and each night's rest carries strength into the morning. Sleep becomes not just rest, but reinforcement, not just a pause, but a continuation. That shift in perspective removes the stress of learning and replaces it with calm consistency. Think of great athletes again. They don't just train hard, they recover well. They understand that muscles grow stronger not during the workout itself, but during the rest afterward. The same is true for your brain. When you expose yourself to English during the day, your brain is working, stretching, learning. When you sleep, your brain strengthens those connections, turning practice into memory, effort into skill. This is how sleep becomes your ally. It multiplies the results of your practice. But never let it become your excuse. If you tell yourself that simply listening while you sleep is enough, you rob yourself of real growth. Passive exposure without active practice is like pouring water on soil without planting seeds. Nothing will grow. You must combine both. Speak even when you stumble. Listen even when you don't understand everything. Read even when the words feel heavy. Write even when the sentences are broken. These are the seeds. Sleep is the rain. Together, they create growth. Alone, neither is enough. And what's more inspiring is that this partnership is available to you every single day. No matter how busy you are, you can always give a little time to English before bed. No matter how imperfect your practice feels, you can still let your brain carry it forward into the night. And no matter how slow your progress may seem, each morning you wake up with more than you had the day before, because you've chosen to make sleep your ally, not your excuse. So tonight, when you lie down and close your eyes, remember that your journey doesn't pause, it continues. Every word you listened to, every phrase you practiced, every mistake you made and corrected, they all stay alive inside you. Your brain is still working, still shaping, still building the version of you who speaks with confidence, who listens without fear, who communicates with ease. Don't wait for miracles. Don't wait for overnight transformations. Instead, believe in the small steps, the daily efforts, the gradual growth, because one morning you will wake up and realize that English no longer feels like a stranger. It feels like a part of you. And in that moment, you'll understand that it wasn't magic. It wasn't shortcuts. It was you, your patience, your persistence, your decision to keep going. That is the truth about learning in your sleep. You are not just dreaming English, you are becoming it.